TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop, come on, take me higher. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome back. Good afternoon. My name is Franke. I'm usually on the other side of the screen, but today I am live with you guys here. We got to thank our sponsors, WagerWire. If you've not downloaded their app, it's free. It makes you a superior sports bettor. So why would you not? You might as well track all your stuff in one place. Viva Tequila Seltzers. You know, they just had a new flavor, coconut. As we say here, we're cuckoo for coconuts. Go to wherever you get your seltzers and get you a Viva Tequila Seltzer. And our latest sponsor, Atlanta Seafood and Steaks. And they are joining us, and we are so proud of them. You know, I know you've heard of Omaha, but Atlanta Seafood and Steaks is even better. So go check it out with Terry Smith at Facebook and get you some orders. We're going to jump straight into it. Ryan is not able to join us. He's a student athlete, so he had an injury this week and was not able to be around. So I'll be hosting the show by myself. So give me some grace in the comments, if you will. And we're going to go through college football to start. Last week, college football Friday night was, the projected game of the week with Arizona and Kansas State. And Kansas State blew them out. It wasn't even close. Kansas State is a absolute dominant team. And with that win, probably looks at going towards the Big 12 championship pretty easily. Them and Arizona are two of the top contenders there, and it's going to be pretty hard for me to think that without beating Kansas State and losing that bad, that they're going to make it to the Big 12 championship. Obviously, you still have Oklahoma State and Utah, who will play this week. We'll talk about that a little later. But that game was a big deciding game for the Big 12. It'll be interesting to see how they can respond to Arizona and still make it to the college football playoffs if they went out, obviously. But it's going to be hard if they play like they did there versus K-State. The game that I thought was interesting on Saturday, we saw Georgia, the number one team in the world, sneak a game out versus Kentucky, which was originally a 16.5 spread. We talked a little bit on College Football Insiders. Matt Grissom talked about how he expected Georgia to cover that spread after Kentucky and South Carolina didn't do as well as they expected. But we saw there, Georgia did not play like the Georgia we know. And part of it, too, was Kentucky was also that dominant. So I don't know. I think Georgia is still probably the best team when they're at their best. But when you look at Texas and Ohio State and Alabama and even Ole Miss, they all outperformed Georgia and what they did versus Kentucky. So it's hard to say that Georgia's the best team every week now, like we have seen in the last couple of weeks, where they beat Clemson on the first week by a lot, and then they walked into another pretty easy win the next on week 2. But week 3, they did not look like the Georgia Bulldogs that we all know. So it'll be interesting to see what they do the rest of the year. We'll talk about Texas. I mean, you look at Texas, they, Archie Manning gets the chance to come into the game, and he just went crazy. I mean, prayers for Quinn Ewers. Obviously, we don't like to see injuries for anybody. Um, that's obviously not what we want, but Archie Manning really got a chance to come out and show what he can do. I saw an article literally a couple of days before the game that was talking about Archie Manning has a big decision, right? Does he stay with Texas because they haven't really given an opportunity? Does he leave? And now that you see him play those kind of games where he's dominant like that, it's hard to imagine that Texas wants him to go anywhere else or lets him go anywhere else. I mean, he's going to get another start this week, but that's absolute dominant performance by Archie Manning, and it's really what people wanted to see and have been looking forward to for a couple of years now since he's come out of high school. So that'll be one to watch out for this week. That's going to be my recap for last week. There wasn't a whole lot of ranked games, a lot of action. And honestly, the one game I did watch the full game, Alabama, Wisconsin, I thought that if Tyler Van Dyke stayed in that game, that they really do have a chance to do something, against Alabama. But with a backup quarterback, and they just couldn't score the ball, and they allowed 42 up, and it really killed their momentum when your head quarterback, your backup quarterback's gone. So we're gonna dive into week 3 though. Some key matchups: Illinois versus Nebraska. Illinois gets ranked after beating a KU team a couple weeks ago, and it was a huge game for them, a huge win. But they do come into this +8 against the spread. Nebraska is ranked 22, Illinois 24. I'll be intrigued to see if Nebraska can keep this going. I mean, they face Colorado, and we know what all the hype about Colorado, but we don't really know who Colorado is. So I wouldn't even say that's really a test game. But I would say this game versus Illinois will be very telling for Nebraska and Matt Rule. And I'm intrigued. In my opinion, I think Nebraska wins this game. -8 is a large spread for me. I might go against the spread with Illinois, but I would definitely take the over on 42.5 points because I just feel like this game's going to be an absolute gunfest, sling out, and there's really not going to be a whole lot of defense going on probably. And you get to the next ranked game, USC Michigan. There's a 5.5-point spread for USC. Michigan a couple weeks ago got the absolute tar beat out of them by Texas, and it was obvious that their passing game was weak. Their defense could not contain Quinn Ewers in his pass game, and even then, I think Edwards had a good day on the ground and did well for them on Texas. So it was very telling that Michigan was just not ready. But now they get a week in between another big game and a chance for them to beat USC. This is a game they're going to have to win if they even want to be in the playoffs. The SEC is going to get a couple teams in there, and obviously you have the 4 automatic bids. So it's going to be hard for Michigan to win this game and to not lose this game and still make it to the playoffs. USC obviously lost Caleb Williams, but they come back with a quarterback in Moss who has been absolutely dominant so far. They just really haven't faced a whole lot of competition. And to me, I think that does make a difference a little bit in this game because he's going to have to face a team that's just tougher than what he has. He faced LSU, which is obviously a good matchup, but I don't think LSU is as good as people really thought they were coming into the year. So I'm going to take USC in this game over Michigan, but it's going to be a close game. Michigan just has too much to lose for them to be blown out in this game. I don't think the talent is the same on both sides of the floor, but Michigan's going to come out hot because they know they have to win this game to make it to the playoffs, which is obviously what they want to do this year. The other big game in the Big 12 is Utah-Oklahoma State. When we look at the Big 12 coming this year, it was one of the most intriguing conferences that we had. Utah was the lead favorite, if I believe so, when we come into the season at a +200 to win the Big 12. But the second coming up behind them was Oklahoma State. And we see this pretty early on this season. I'm glad it's not week 1 like we saw a couple of those games. But week 4, it's still pretty early on, especially for these two powerhouses. I would say that what we're going to see in Oklahoma State coming off that week versus Tulsa is going to be a lot of offensive oriented. I mean, the spread's at 45.5, so that everybody knows they're going to be scoring the ball on both sides. But we know that Ollie Gordon is probably the top running back in the nation right now. So it's going to be leaning on him a lot. But at the same time, Utah's secondary is always something that's to be watched out for. So if Oklahoma State effectively passes the ball, it's going to be hard for Utah to win this game. But on the other side of the field, when Utah's offense is going, there's really not a lot you can do to stop them. I mean, Cam Rising is like a 30-year-old vet. I mean, he should be in the NFL at this point, it feels like. So if he can continually pass the ball against this Oklahoma State defense, which is one of the best in the league, one of the best in the nation, then it's going to be a good game. It's got Utah at a -2 on the spread. I probably won't touch that. I would take a money line. Um, I'd probably take Utah money line, but that's such a tough game because there's just so many key parts that has to go right for both teams to win. If anything, that the more intriguing part to me is the Oklahoma State money line, just because it is 110, and to me that's kind of a pick 'em. You're going to get more value out of that than Utah, but that is going to be a very intriguing game and one to watch at 3 o'clock on Fox, 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern. And the last game we're going to talk about here is Tennessee Oklahoma. It is the game of the week. As Tennessee is a -7 favorite. That is a huge spread. But what we've seen from Tennessee is they've been able to move the ball and do a lot of things offensively without their quarterback really doing too much. I mean, I don't think Nico looked too great last game, but they absolutely destroyed again. And then they beat NC State the week before that by like 40 points. And NC State then was ranked. I don't think NC State is a ranked team right now, but they're still a great team. It's going to be hard to say that, that game, is a wash, and that just because NC State didn't play good, that Tennessee wasn't impressive. But at the same time, Oklahoma comes in, and their first year in the SEC, they have to prove they can beat SEC teams, just like Tennessee. And they're not doing too bad themselves offensively. Arnold is doing pretty well. His completion percentage is not great with the 54 and 86 on the year. His 7 touchdowns, though, is impressive. But what we're really seeing from him is his rushing attack. He's at 36 rushes on 159 yards, which is super impressive at the quarterback position. They're going to have to contain him Tennessee-wise, and they're going to have to hope that they can make other people beat them other than Arnold. But I just don't see a whole lot of weapons on the side for Oklahoma as I do Tennessee, you just can get beat by anybody. I mean, Sampson in 3 games has 9 rushing touchdowns, an absolute dominant running back. Somebody that I just didn't expect seeing that coming from this early in the year. But I think he could be one of the top, picks for the running backs in this draft if he continues the way he's going. We're going to switch to NFL, though. NFL Week 2 was absolutely insane. I am a Buffalo Bills fan, so I enjoyed the week. I enjoyed the madness on Sunday after, our takedown victory on the Dolphins. I'm praying for Tua. I know that, after having so many concussions, it's got to be tough to, continue to go out there. And who knows what his future looks like, but hopefully he recovers well and everything. Like I said, though, the Bills with a dominant win. And the thing that I was most impressed by was they got outbeaten in yards, I think both passing and rushing. Like, they just really didn't have to do a whole lot. They didn't play their best game, in my opinion, and they still beat a contention team by 21 points. When Tua went out, it was, I think, 17. But at the same time, like, you're beating a team that's supposed to be in the playoffs by that much without playing your best football. That's got to say a lot to me. And I think they have to be up there in the top 10, if not top 5 in the power rankings. And then you look at, the Cowboys, who absolutely got demolished. I thought it was honestly the divisional round of the playoffs, because that's the only time I've seen them get beat that bad every year is in the playoffs. So the Saints really came out. I mean, Kamara is Kamara. And one stat that Jeff keeps mentioning, and I will too, is 15 for 15 for Derek Carr on scoring drives. He is, when they are scoring the ball, it's because he's being efficient. He's getting the ball in. He just does not miss those passes. But when he is off his game, there's an obvious difference. So I do think the Cowboys are better than what they played, but I don't think the Saints are as good as what they played. I don't want to overreact to this and say that, like, all of a sudden that the Saints are one of those teams to get. But you look at a lot of those teams. I mean, we see that the Lions lost their contender, the 49ers lost their contender. The Ravens are 0-2 now after losing to the Raiders, who everybody thought was not going to be good. And then you see the Bengals coming off an 0-1 week, and they losing a game to the Chiefs, who snuck out a victory. Obviously, it's not the Chiefs are bad, but still, you cannot fall to 0-2 in that division. The Steelers are literally 2-0, and they're about to take this division if the Ravens and Bengals don't step it up. And then last night, the Eagles are like two feet away, maybe even less, from winning that game if Saquon gets in the end zone. So a lot of top dogs coming down. And something that was mentioned this morning, Andrew McGinnis talked about, you're only as good as your record. As much as people want to say that, they're better than that. They're better than, they're probably still a top 10 team. You're 0-2 for the Bengals and Ravens. You just can't have that. And you got to improve your game. You got to step up eventually. And eventually you got to win games. The Ravens are going to have a tough one here next week. They're playing the Cowboys. And for both these teams, they're probably must-win games. The Ravens are 0-2, the Cowboys being 1-1. And I really think that if the Ravens lose this and drop to 0-3, they probably fall out of a lot of people's contentions, especially for that division. They probably fall out of the division. But the Cowboys also have to win. It's nice that the Eagles lost for them, but the Cowboys still have to take that top NFC spot, which was really open, up for grabs right now with 49ers losing, them losing, the Eagles losing. There's a lot of, even the Lions lost. There's a lot of NFC spots available. They're just going to have to come in and really win it here. But we look at Thursday night football, Patriots and Jets, not a great game. I'll probably turn it on because I'm a football fanatic and I don't really care what the game is on. But I'm probably not, I don't prefer this to be my Thursday night game. We see Aaron Rodgers is going to come up on a Thursday night on a short week. That'll be interesting to watch how he responds to having not a full week of practice coming at that age. Obviously, I expect the Jets to win this game, but the Patriots won the first game versus the Bengals, and we're close the second week. So there's probably a good talk about, what does it look like if the Patriots win this game versus the Jets? Do they continue to – can they continue to roll? Their run game is dominant. Their defense is holding people to less than 13 points a game. You just don't know with the Patriots. And if they could really at some point get any receiving game going, any passing game going, Patriots aren't a bad team. You could expect them to maybe even just slide in the playoffs. That's the odds I would take right now. They're probably pretty low on that odds list for DraftKings to make the playoffs. And they would be a sleeper team. Obviously, I don't expect them to do anything as soon as they get in the playoffs. But if you're looking for a long, long shot, that would be my favorite one. There's a lot of other games this Sunday. Eagles Saints is what I've been looking at. Like we said, the Saints come off 240 pieces in the last 2 weeks. I don't expect them to do that versus the Eagles, obviously, but they do swing to a 2.5-point spread with AJ Brown being most likely out, as they announced on television. It was a Eagles 2 spread, so that's a 4.5-point swing. And I think that game is going to be interesting. I think that the Eagles probably still pull it out, but it's going to be a game to watch, right? Can the Eagles produce now that they have a whole week to prepare without A.J. Brown? And can the Saints continue their dominance against a team that we know is good, even if they have a couple key pieces missing? And then one thing I do want to talk about, too, is they've been talking about this kind of load management that we kind of seeing with players going out right before the game and how much that affects, these wide gaps of spreads being broken. Like we saw Evan Ingram go down pretty early, right before the game last week. And we're seeing that consistently. Travis Kelce's been playing, but he hasn't been playing a whole lot. These big-time names are not playing to their full potential every week now. How much does that affect, Survivor Series? So guys are picking that are going to pick the biggest spread, like the Ravens last week. There was no injuries there, but there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And I think part of it has to be to this kind of a load management system that we're seeing. I think that, they play once a week. You would expect them to be there, but at the same time, off season are getting shorter, season are getting longer, and these games are meaning more and more. But I do think it's good for the NFL to have these upsets happen because we're probably going to see a lot more playoff games near the end of the season that are close to contention. You know what I mean? You're going to see a lot of teams that 10-7 range coming into that, going to be 10-7 range coming into that last week. You're going to see a lot of divisional games that are going to matter in Week 18. Instead of seeing Mahomes is sitting out and all the quarterbacks sitting out, you might see a lot of them start because they're still fighting for a spot. I think the Chiefs won't be one of them, but you never really know. And another big game we're going to talk about here, C.J. Stroud and the Texans face the Vikings. I think C.J. Stroud has not, looked as good as we all expected to make that big leap. But it's pretty hard for him to make a leap when he came into his rookie year absolutely dominant. You just haven't seen a rookie come in like that ever, honestly, in my opinion. And now he's coming in. He's got Stephon Diggs to add to his weapons with Tank Dell and Nico Collins and Joe Mixon, who's been an absolute workhorse in the first 2 weeks. I think that this Texan team is dangerous, but when C.J. Stroud really does get going, I mean, they snuck out a victory versus the Bears, who didn't look great. I think, like you said, we still see the same problems. The Bears don't have a great O-line, and it really doesn't matter how many weapons you put around somebody if they don't have time to throw the ball. I think Caleb Williams just is not useless, but not put in a situation that you want him to or that we thought he would be in. I do think, as we progress through the season, we'll see Caleb Williams get better. We'll see that O-line tighten up a little bit. Hopefully, and no injuries happen for them, but we'll see that those weapons start to come into factor. I mean, Keenan Allen was out the other night for Sunday Night Football. Hopefully, he's back for Caleb Williams' sake. He's just a super consistent guy. But I think that what we saw on the Sunday night was the Texans team not at full strength or a Bears team not at their full strength. And I think when those both teams are going, they're going to be teams that you want to watch out for, especially the Texans. I mean, everybody talks about they could be a Super Bowl favorite, and they really could be if they pick it up the way they're expected to. But it's got to be through their passing game. And when CJ Stroud really figures out how to use all these weapons, and hopefully, we don't see it a whole lot yet of Stephon Diggs' effect that he's had in the last two teams, where he's demanding the ball and it's affecting the quarterback's decision making and affecting really how much he can do. We saw that especially at the end of Buffalo and even at the end of the Vikings, which is why he got traded to Buffalo in the first place. I hope for the Texans' sake and CJ Stroud's sake that they don't end up, having that situation with a big drama effect. Right now, he just seems to be a good leader for them because they just didn't really have a whole lot of that leadership other than DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud. And they needed that veteran guy to come in order to make that difference. But Sunday night, we do see the Chiefs and Falcons. Chiefs versus Falcons. This could be a great game. Hopefully, we see Travis Kelce get going. I think that without the Chiefs having Travis Kelce get going, that they're probably not their best, not their full potential. We all know that when Kelce is at his best, the Chiefs are a dangerous team, especially now that they have weapons with Worthy and Rashid Rice, who's not arrested yet, so he can keep playing on the field, I guess. If those guys are going as well as Kelce, that offense is hard to beat. Now, Pacheco is out, so the running game is going to be different. That's the thing we have to watch, right? The Falcons are probably going to be heavily reliant on stopping the pass game because they know that their Chiefs' run game is not going to be as dominant without Pacheco. Not that they're not going to run the ball, but without Pacheco, they're not going to be able to rely on it to give Patrick Mahomes breaks. So you're probably going to see a lot more coverage, a lot more deeper coverage. You're going to see disguised man blitz probably to get Mahomes off of his game. But you're going to have to see these weapons like Worthy and Rice maybe go for more, jet sweeps or end arounds or screens because they're just not going to have the time they usually have because there's going to be a lot of pressure since they know that, the Falcons are not going to rely on the run game. They're just going to either sit back in coverage or attack you in the blitz. I still think the Chiefs pull it out and move to 3-0 as they are probably the best team in the league at this point. But the other side of the ball, you never know when Bijan gets going and Kirk Cousins is at his game. It's hard to see them, not winning a whole lot of games. And this could be one that the Chiefs drop just because the Falcons are now slowly becoming into their own. We saw the first week, the Falcons were terrible. Now they beat the Eagles this week. Not the Eagles were great last night, but they did beat them, still a victory. And you move on to this week of the Chiefs, maybe they're progressing into a whirlwind that the Chiefs just might run into. Who knows? I still have the Chiefs winning it. 3.5-point spread, I'd probably feel comfortable taking that. But if Bijan can get going and really get scoring and maybe Kyle Pitts can catch touchdown passes, I mean, I think his record is 1. So if he gets one more this season, he already broke his season record. That would be interesting to see. And Kirk Cousins, obviously, that's the big key factor. If he can get the ball out to his playmakers and let them go, then Chiefs are going to have a lot on their hands to deal with, especially without Snead still on that team. Then we go to Monday night, 2 Monday night football games. I'm not really sure why that is, but we're going to finish up on these Monday night football games. Jaguars, Bills. Being a Bills fan, the Jaguars is the one team I don't like to see because they always somehow find a way to beat us. In 2023, they beat us 25-20. And then, 3 years ago, everybody remembers the game where they beat us 6-9, and that was an absolutely terrible game. And especially with the Jaguars coming in 0-2, we saw, obviously, Evan Ingram went down. That plays a big factor. But their team hasn't got going, and they are desperate to win games. And this just could be the week that it all comes together, and they really figure it out. And with the Bills team, as much as I said I do like seeing that they didn't play their best football and still won a game, they are going to have to play their best football here soon. especially facing a Jaguars team that's probably in playoff contention near the end of the year. I'm hoping the Bills figure it out. They haven't got the yardage they've liked on offense, but we've seen James Cook explode. He did last week, and we know that Josh Allen is Josh Allen. And as long as he can spread the ball around, then he'll be fine. But it's defensively too. They got to hold the Jaguars like they did the Dolphins to just, some slow drives and hope that they don't score a touchdown on big plays. And that's going to have to do that without a lot of playmakers. Terrell Bernard is out. Taron Johnson is probably still out. Matt Milano is out for the year. So there's a lot of guys on that Bills defense that are not there that they're going to have to rely on backups and their depth to really help them. We saw Von Miller was absolutely dominant last week. He had 4 pressures in under 2.5 seconds, which is insane to think about. He's just going to have to be a guy that's consistent for them and consistently getting after Trevor Lawrence, because we know that Trevor Lawrence is not super mobile. So I'm going to call a Bills victory here, as I am a Bills fan. There's a little bias there probably. But the 5.5 spread does probably not hit. It probably is a closer game just because the Jaguars do have the Bills number. And then the last game of the week, Commanders versus Bengals. Cincinnati is a 7.5-point favorite coming into the week 0-2, like we talked about earlier. They have to win this game. They're coming against a rookie quarterback, which is going to be in their favor, obviously. They don't have a veteran running their offense in Washington. But Jalen Daniels is a playmaker, and if he gets, when he explodes for those plays, it's going to be hard to stop their offense. I mean, we haven't seen Terry McLaurin really get going. I mean, their passing game in general. So if they can get going and, Jalen Daniels is all of a sudden rushing for 100 yards, they're going to be a tough team to beat. They've lost a lot of key defensive players in the last couple of years. We saw Chase Young and Montez Sweat, who went to the Bears last year. But they still have some key pieces on that line with Jonathan Allen, who can really stop the Bengals' run game, which has been pretty much non-threat. But we're going to have to see the big part, Jamar Chase going. I mean, we were looking for him to get going sometime in that Chiefs game, and he just never did. He was consistently slow. He was consistently getting double teamed, and he's going to have to explode one of these games, especially if he wants that contract that he's been looking for. 7.5. I'm not super confident on a 7.5 spread for Cincinnati just because they are 0-2, but the disparity of it and facing a team like the Commanders, I could see this being a blowout game and Joe Burrow really putting it together with that offense. But I would say the Bengals are going to win, but spread probably is a little bit too juicy for me. I might even pull it down to minus 6.5 and see that touchdown favorite for the Bengals probably hits. I appreciate all of you joining us this week for Balls and Bow Ties. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, Ryan will be back with us next week, and he can heal up. Thank you for joining us. I know that we're a little short on our show this week, but without 2 people, we're just trying to get something out, but also give you guys content and not, force anything that we don't like. And we'll be in a new room next week too, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully, it'll look a little nicer, and you guys can enjoy the visual part as much as the audio part. So tomorrow morning, Wednesday, we have Brady, Kannon, and Tyler coming in. We have some golf and some NFL. Stay tuned for that. And Thursday, we have Paul Stone and Cam Stewart coming on. Cam Stewart, a first-time guest for us on our show. So stay tuned for that. He's going to be very one of our favorite guests, one of you guys' favorite guests too. And then Friday, we wrap it up with the college football insiders who are going to break down all the games the day before. You see those lines that are super close. And obviously, closing bell tonight, closing bell Wednesday, and the closing bell Friday with Scotty Webb talking NFL and MLB. Thank you guys for joining me. I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.